Hi, Grandma here, and I'm reading Dave at Night. Dave is at Irma Lee's party, and he went to the dining room, and he decided that he needed to take food back for his buddies. So he started stuffing food in his shirt, in his trouser pockets, and apples and nuts and bread and just all kinds of things he's got tucked into his shirt. Well, then the dancing started, and Irma Lee wanted to dance. So he started dancing with her, and in the excitement of the dance, his shirt pulled out of his pants, and the food all fell out all over the floor. How embarrassing. Chapter 25. A woman almost fell on top of me, but her partner caught her. Irma Lee said, "What happened? Where?" And then she looked at me and she knew. I wanted to evaporate. I wanted to turn myself into somebody else, somebody like Gideon, who would never get into this kind of trouble. I wanted to turn time back an hour before this started and do it over. I wanted most of all not to cry. A maid came from someplace and started sweeping up. I reached into my shirt and pulled out a few nuts and the crushed roll. I held them out to her. There was no point in trying to hide anything now. Irma Lee started laughing. "You look so funny," she gasped. She was laughing at me. She knew I was a thief and thought I was an idiot. She was right. "The squashed roll, A man interrupted. "It's not funny. Whites always steal from us, although they usually do it sneakier." Irma Lee tried to stop laughing. "He didn't steal." A giggle got out. "It was for our picnic in the backyard." Then she was off laughing again. "Celery in your hair, your shirt." A few other people joined the laughter. Then the music started up and everybody went back to dancing. She stuck up for me. She thought it was funny. She was crazy, good crazy, the best crazy. I was still on the floor. The maid picked up the last celery stick. All around me, people were dancing. I guess it was funny. I thought of Papa, what he'd think of this mess. He'd laugh and he'd roar. I stood up and jumped around again in time to the music. Before I left tonight, I was going to make sure she knew I had stolen it from my buddies, not for myself. She started dancing too. She danced next to me and tried to get me to learn the Charleston. By the end of the song, I'd caught on a little, even though my arms kept going the wrong way. In the quiet, after the song ended, Irma Lee asked, "You want to see the backyard where we were going to have a picnic?" "Okay." She took my hand again. It was so friendly and trusting when she did that. I followed her through the dining room and into the kitchen, where a woman was taking another roast out of the oven and a man was washing dishes. Beyond the kitchen was a small room lined with shelves full of cans and jars. Facing us was the door to the backyard. We went out. The cold air felt good. Irma Lee flicked a switch on the door frame and a light came on. The yard was only as wide as the house and not very deep, but it was crammed with things, mostly statues of men and women, some of them naked. There was a statue of a horse as big as a horse, and there were statues of heads, just heads with their necks and a bit of their shoulders. They looked like they were growing out of the ground, like somebody had planted head seeds. There were also 2 benches and some dried up plants left over from the summer. The food was for my buddies at the orphanage. "Why did you put it all in your shirt?" "Because my pockets weren't big enough." I started laughing again. It sounded so silly. Irma Lee laughed too. "I can give you better food to take back." I couldn't walk in with a platter. It has to be something I can sneak in. "All right, I'll give you a loaf of potato bread." It was eerie out here. The light was dim. The statues by the back fence were just shadowy shapes. My pages are stuck. We could play hide and seek, I said. There are lots of good hiding places. Irma Lee looked so happy it was like I'd given her $1 million, and she needed $1 million, which she didn't. Should I hide or do you want to? I asked. She asked. I'll hide. If she hid, I'd never find her. She knows all the best places. She leaned against the house and started counting. I stood next to a statue of a man shooting an arrow and imitated him. Irma Lee might not notice me. 59, 60, 61. Nothing was big enough to hide me completely. I ended up crawling under a bench. 99, 100. She turned and started searching for me with her eyes not moving, but she didn't look low enough. She moved away from her home base. When she was further away from it than I was, I began to itch out. She didn't see me. I scrambled the rest of the way out, but before I could even stand up, she was tagging me and laughing. There she was, laughing down at me. So close, I stood up and kissed her cheek. Her skin felt soft and smooth and nice. Then I backed away. I couldn't believe I'd done it. She went on laughing. You're it. I caught you, Dave Caros. I blurted, I'm going to run away from the home after I get my carving back. Do you know any place I could stay? She didn't even stop to think. Well, you could stay in our basement, she nodded. You really could. Mama never goes down there. I'd bring you food. I could bring pillows down to make you a... That was a friend. She could be an honorary buddy, except for being a girl. I had a place to stay. Now all I needed was the carving. I could teach you what Miss Mulready teaches me. I could teach you to play jacks and do the Charleston better and the black bottom. We could jump rope. Jacks and jumping rope were for girls, but I guessed I could do it. You could come upstairs when Mama's not home. Could I get out sometime? I asked. Sure, and you could meet Sally and go to rent parties. When are you coming? As soon as I get Papa's carving back. The door opened and Sally came out. He was out of breath and the parrot was flapping its wings. I climbed almost to the roof looking for you. We better leave or I'll turn into a pumpkin and the nebbish won't let you in. Now, I told you before that there were a lot of Yiddish words, and some are in the glossary and Wikipedia under Dave at Night, and some the author goes ahead and tells you what it means. But here, we have to guess what it means. We'd better leave or I'll turn into a pumpkin and the nebbish won't let you in. So the nebbish would be the authorities at the Hebrew Home for Boys. And I suspect that he's not saying it fondly. So we know that the nebbish are probably people that are in authority, and it's not a nice word. I smiled at him. It didn't matter anymore that he wouldn't let me stay with him. I liked him a lot. After all, he did go through trouble and expense to get me out of the HHB tonight. Before we left, Irma Lee gave me a loaf of potato bread which weighed at least 10 pounds. It was big, but I could sneak it in under my jacket. Mr. Gruber, she said after she gave me the bread, are you going to bring Dave to any more parties? Could be, Irmela. He's a good groaner. Goodbye, I said. We shook hands. She whispered to me, I'll get everything ready. Hurry up and get your carving back. Well, that was interesting. If you've ever been into a city, the yards usually are not very big, and they often are only as wide as the house is. The at least where I lived in St. Louis, the space between two houses was so narrow. We used to call it the gangway because it was just so narrow. It was like the gangway on a ship. Just a very short, just a very narrow area that you could walk in. So there was not much room in between the two houses. And I suspect that it's the same in New York City at this time. Anyway, see you next time. Bye-bye.